Hello there YouTube, so I am doing a video today all for people that are just getting started out in the goth subculture. I was asked to do this about a couple of months ago on my Tumblr, and so I'm sorry this is late, but I thought I would do this for you today. In this video I'm just going to be talking about a few different things. I may be repeating myself at some points with things I've said earlier on in my videos, but I just would really like it to all just be in one video so I can cover the music and the fashion as well as other things as well. And so when you're just starting out in the subculture, I'm sure that a lot of people will feel like there's so many things to learn about, so many things to take in, and I think people feel pressured to know everything there is about it. And no one is ever going to know absolutely everything, and I would really recommend that before anything else, if you are just starting out, do not put pressure on yourself to know everything about the subculture. It's something that's going to take a really long time to get into, so don't rush yourself, just enjoy the whole experience of getting into it before anything else. Ignore any elitists that give you any crap and just, as I said, enjoy the journey of discovering and finding out whether this subculture is right for you. So the first thing I'm going to be talking about is the music. Now, a lot of people will say that the music is pretty much the most important thing about it all. I think it's because it's kind of what started it off. Now, I personally agree that the music is a really big part of it. I don't think it's the only thing that makes it what it is. And so if I'm just going to give you a basic overview of how it all started. So there was punk in the late 70s, well, mid to late 70s. It kind of really kicked off in like 76, 77. 77 was like when the Sex Pistols were really big. And so you had all these new bands that were doing something very, obviously it was completely different to everything that we'd seen before in music. And so punk kind of came and went fairly quickly. It only lasted a few years, but after punk there was post-punk. Post-punk is pretty much, obviously it was influenced by punk, it's called post-punk, it goes without saying really, but it was slightly darker. It was darker, it wasn't so like loud and chaotic, it was a similar sound, but just, as I said, kind of darker. The bands that would be classed as post-punk, a lot of those are goth bands. Post-punk was kind of more early 80s, and early 80s was like, it was the beginning of goth, so when post-punk was starting out, also the fashion was becoming a big thing as well. Again, like, it was like punk, but again, it was more black and more dramatic makeup, I would say. The really big hair and winkle pickers, lots of leather and lots of fishnets, and it's something that I can't see how it would have happened without punk. So it's kind of important to see the link between the two. And when we're talking about the early 80s with goth, one thing we can't forget is the Batcave. Now, the Batcave is a nightclub. It was in Soho, opened in 1982, I believe, and it was basically what people like to refer to as the birthplace of Gothic. It's kind of like a Blitz for new romantics. It was somewhere where all the goths went, and they would just dress up as the ultimate goths and just go to the nightclub. Obviously, they play lots of goth music. Specimen were there. Band Specimen actually ran the club, and if you haven't listened to them, you should, because they're brilliant. Yeah, like I said, it opened in 1982, and they played lots of post-punk and goth music, and it was just a place for everyone to go to. I'm going to leave down below in the description some documentaries and things that are on TV about the Batcave nightclub. And there are also some other nightclubs as well that were around, well, everywhere really, but I know there's some other documentaries about other nightclubs in the UK that also would play the same kind of music and were all about the same sort of thing. And I will leave that down in the description, and they are very interesting. It's good to see. I've been to Soho quite a few times just to kind of walk down the street where it was. You wouldn't know it was there. You really wouldn't. It's but still, it's fun to kind of be there and just imagine it all happening Now to talk about specific bands that I would recommend you to listen to if you're just getting started out. The first band I would most definitely recommend, and I'm going to say them first because I feel like they were the first band really to be creating dark post-punk music, and that is Joy Division. Joy Division, they're a very popular band. I'm sure most of you would have heard of them anyway. I would completely recommend listening to both the albums, Unknown Pleasures and Closer, and again, when listening to them you can tell that they're influenced by punk, but it sounds very gloomy. Ian Curtis's voice is so haunting, and it's just the perfect place, I would say, to start listening to music. The other band that I would definitely recommend listening to is Siouxsie and the Banshees. I say them next because they're a band that started out as a punk band, but they managed to stick around and still be very, very popular in post-punk as well. And if you're going to listen to Siouxsie and the Banshees albums, I'd recommend Juju, Kiss in the Dreamhouse as well. If you're more into punky kind of stuff, then maybe The Scream or Join Hands, but I love all their music. You all know they're one of my favourite bands, and Siouxsie Sue is just a goth icon fashion-wise, and she played a really, really big part in the whole thing. The next band that I'm going to be talking about, you all know I'm going to talk about them, it's The Cure. They are my favourite band. Did you know that? I would say, if you're not used to listening to dark music at all, then maybe listen to The Cure first, because they do have some lighter, happier songs as well, but they can be also pretty gloomy as well. Disintegration is an album I have to recommend. It's one of the ultimate goth albums, even though it wasn't released until 1989, but still. If you're wanting to listen to the earlier kind of darker stuff, 17 Seconds is quite new wave as well, and a lot of new wave bands, by the way, goth seem to really like new wave as well as post-punk. They were both popular around the same time, and they were both fab. So Faith and Pornography are two other incredible albums by them that they've got loads of albums, very, very different kind of genre albums as well. You've got kind of happier stuff like The Head on the Door, which is a very, very popular album that The Cure have done. That was early 90s. The ones I mentioned earlier are more of their darker kind of albums. They're also my favourites. And Robert Smith is yet another person that, when you think of Gothic musicians, he's one that springs to mind straight away. I know none of them like to be associated with the subculture, but still, I just love them. Fourth band I obviously need to talk about is Bauhaus. I say obviously because I feel like they're the one band that really just stuck to goth music, and that is all they did, and they were very, very dark. And album-wise, I would recommend In the Flat Field. It's their first album. It's quite experimental, like first albums always are, but my favourite album of theirs is Burning from the Inside, which is, again, any Bauhaus album you listen to, you're going to get really goth music. And again, Peter Murphy, there's just something about his voice which is so... It's just really good. Other bands to keep in mind to listen to, The Sisters of Mercy, Sex Gang Children, and Christian Death. I think, although they're Christian Death and more death rock, I think Only Theatre of Pain is a must to listen to. As am I forgetting? A Specimen as well. Lots and lots of 80s bands that weren't goth are still kind of bands that goths seem to like a New Order, Depeche Mode. I'm forgetting some really important ones. So yeah, I would say just watch the music videos, watch interviews, just really get into them. And I'm not saying you have to like these bands, I'm just saying it's really, really helpful to have an understanding of how it all started, where it all came from. It will also help you in terms of the next thing I'm going to be talking about, which is fashion, because you will also have a better understanding of how the fashion kind of evolved. Now, with fashion, there's lots of different types, such as there's cybergoth, there's gothic Lolita, and there's, I could go on forever. I would kind of just look at the gothic musicians. I find it's so inspiring when it comes to you trying to decide on an outfit or something. Just looking at Siouxsie Sue or Patricia Morrison, Robert Smith, The Damned are another band that people really like, Dave Vanian, and just looking at musicians, looking at their outfits. I keep all these posters in my room just to help inspire me every day when I get ready, and just having surrounding yourself by these things will really help you get into the fashion a lot more. I'm sure most of you have Tumblr. Tumblr is a great place to kind of just look at blogs and stuff, and again get lots and lots of outfit ideas and just getting ideas of putting things together. Obviously there's YouTube as well. The internet is a really great place. It's something that they didn't have back then when it was all starting, and now we can really take advantage of that. Research the different subgenres as well, because as I said, there are so many different types, and there's nothing wrong with experimenting and trying out loads and loads of different ones to see what fits you. And if you find that more than one fit you, then wear whatever you feel like wearing on that particular day, and don't feel like you have to put yourself into a very specific category because that can really limit you, and it may not be as fun. Alternatively, you may really just feel like one in particular is very much you. Like for me, I love the 80s so much anyway that I'm going to feel like very more like the traditional style is more my kind of thing, as much as I love all the different genres. So yeah, just type in the different subgenres, have a look at images, see what appeals to you most, and just try and start putting outfits together. It's going to take time, and that's absolutely okay. Eventually you'll find outfits that really work for you. I mainly kind of just still shop on the high street, but every once in a while it's good to shop online. Shopping online, such as places like eBay, Etsy is a really good place because it does vintage clothes, and you can also find vintage clothes on eBay as well. But another good thing with eBay, and why I would recommend really trying shopping there, is that you can just type in whatever you want, and a lot of the time something that you're looking for will come up. If you just want small little cross earrings, then you'll get them from eBay like I did with this. If you just want a black beaded pearl necklace, again, this is from eBay, you can get it from there. But alternatively, like say I got this necklace here, it's just this little star, that way it's kind of got little diamondy bits in it, or you can wear it that way. This is from Topshop, and so it's just looking around, picking out bits that you think would be suitable for you. A lot of goths also like to make their own clothes and do a lot of DIY. I don't. Because I would be useless at that sort of thing, and I would wreck all my clothes. Although I haven't done it myself, I'm sure it'd be really good fun to like do a lot of DIY and customise and personalise your own clothing. Try out different makeup styles and see what you feel best with. I've kind of over the years made mine more and more dramatic, I would say, although this isn't terribly dramatic or anything. If you don't want to dye your hair black, you don't have to dye your hair black to be goth. This book here is something I would really recommend, and this is Somewhere Leather, Somewhere Lace, and it is a book that came out at the end of last year. So many like amazing images of just so much fun to look through, and really just makes you want to dress like them so much. And so I would totally recommend this book. It's got, as you can see, it's like Siouxsie Sue there and Ollie and Johnny from Specimen there. And so it's just a really fab book, and I would all recommend that you buy it, and that's what it looks like at the front there. It even has like different like winkle pickers and pointy shoes of all sorts on the back as well for you to have a look through. It's great, and it's something that helps inspire me, and so that is, I got it off Amazon, but I shall leave the link in the description. And yeah, as I said, it's one of my favourite books ever. I feel like this book was made for me. It's just different images of post-punk and goth in the 1980s. There is also Gothic literature, and there's also Gothic films as well. I'm running out of time, so I won't really be able to get into a huge amount of detail. When it comes to Gothic literature, there's quite a bit, but it can be quite hard to get into, I find. When you're first reading it, I find it was very different to the sort of things I've been reading before. I think I started out with The Monk, which is a book by Matthew Gregory Lewis, and it is very disturbing and strange and weird. But there's also Anne Rice. She's very well known in Gothic literature. There's Mary Shelley, Frankenstein. Obviously, obviously there's Bram Stoker's Dracula, Edgar Allan Poe. Everyone loves Edgar Allan Poe. And there's Lovecraft. There's just, I did have a book, I don't have it with me here, but it's like 4 Gothic novels, and I had The Monk and Frankenstein and a couple of others as well, just in one big book, and that's really good. To start out, I would say with the most popular classics like Poe and Shelley. I do mainly love writing Gothic literature actually. It's something that I didn't begin to do until just a few years ago, but reading the works of those people definitely helped inspire me with my own writing as well. Another thing to talk about is films. I don't really know where to begin with this, just because horror films, there's so much to choose from. You could start with Nosferatu, I'm sure you know already, a very, very old classic vampire film, or you could start with something modern. It's entirely up to you, but you don't need to love scary films. I just happen to really love scary films, but if it's not really your sort of thing, then I'm not saying you have to watch scary films. But one film I would actually really recommend is The Hunger. It's a early 80s film. David Bowie's in it. It's a bit of an odd film, but it's really good fun to watch, and Bauhaus are in it at the beginning as well, and it's I think it's a must watch if you're getting into the subculture as well. There's so many vampire films, and I'm more into ghost stories personally, so I usually prefer kind of the spooky haunted house kind of setting. But in my goth confessions I actually said that there are a lot of goth films that I haven't seen. That was one of my confessions, and so yeah, there's a lot I still need to do myself as well, but that's just all part of the fun of just being part of it all, and just knowing that there's still so much out there to explore. If you don't feel like you're completely 100% goth, you still feel like you fit into other subcultures as well, then that's okay. And as time goes on, you'll discover more bands to listen to, more music, more films to watch, more books to read, more clothes to try out, and it's just a continual process of discovering yourself as well as goth itself. I hope this video was really helpful for you, and thank you ever so much for watching everyone, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye!